What happens when two dudes, one a retired Navy SEAL commander in Colorado Springs, and the other a hippie meditation teacher in New York City, get together to discuss living mindfully? That's a great question, because we don't know what will happen either. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness, with co-hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Each week, we take an authentic dive into how mindfulness continually impacts our lives, deepens our relationships, and allows us to be emotionally alive. Now, on to the show. Hey, welcome back to Men Talking Mindfulness. Today, we are going to unpack some questions that John and I often hear. Can I meditate or practice mindfulness if I'm a Christian or ascribe to another religious affiliation? Or will I become a Buddhist if I meditate? Or how can mindfulness actually help in my spiritual journey? Well, we are going to do the best we can to answer those questions today, and also talk about the history of meditation and mindfulness and the intersections with religion, and also what are some of the feelings that arise within this seeming conflict. To help us with this conversation, we have a very special guest and someone who's a close personal friend of mine, Dr. Clark Chilson from the University of Pittsburgh. Hey, before we go any further, we have a little request. If you're a fan of the show, please help us grow by taking a screenshot right now and posting it to your social, encouraging your network, your friends, and your loved ones to join these conversations. It's our mission here at MTM to spread the practices and the many benefits of mindfulness far and wide, and to help you and all people live with greater health and peacefulness. Before we get to Clark and the rest of the show, let's say hello to your co-host and my brother from another mother, John McCaskill. How's life in Colorado Springs, John?
It's great, man. Really enjoying life out here. Just had my family come visit as they were driving across the country. So my father, two of my sisters, and my nephew came over and visited, and my niece who actually lives here in Colorado Springs. So it was a full house this morning before the show, and then spent the past day and a half in Durango, actually with Dr. Teresa Larson, one of our previous guests and our partner with Movement RX, and sporting the Durango Fire Department hoodie here. They ran through a movement and mindfulness experience with us and will be joining us on the mindfulness and movement experience. But it was an honor and privilege to work there with Durango Fire Department and Police Department, running them through that so that they can live that lifetime of physical and emotional freedom. But yeah, Colorado Springs is great. Super excited about this episode and this topic, because this is something I get asked all the time. If I am religion X, Y, or Z, can I meditate? Or is meditation different from prayer? How does meditation augment or interfere with my religious beliefs? So I'm very excited to talk with Dr. Chilson and understand his thoughts and everything on this. So yeah, let's get to it.
All right, well, let's drop into let's bring up Dr. Clark. We're going to do his bio right now, and there he is.
There he is.
Hey, Dr. Clark, or Clark, my friend for many, many years. Well, hey, here's what Dr. Chilson's all about. Before joining the faculty at the University of Pittsburgh in 2006, where he teaches on religions in Asia and relationship between Buddhism and psychology, Dr. Chilson lived in England for 3 years and in Japan for over 13 years. In Japan, he studied cultural anthropology, did fieldwork at a Zen temple and amongst secretive Buddhists for 5 years, and was the associate editor at Asian Folklore Studies and the Japanese Journal of Religious Studies. In 2014, Dr. Clark wrote Secrecy, Power, Covert Shin Buddhism in Japan and the Contradictions of Concealment. He is also co-editor of 2 books, Nanzan?
Yes.
Nanzan Guide to Japanese Religion with Paul Swanson, and Shamans in Asia with Peter Knecht. Dr. Clark also published articles on Nikon, a meditative practice that has been used as a psychotherapeutic intervention. Clark, yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Good. And that was really weird to hear you call me Dr. Clark Chilson.
Well, yeah. That's I guess this is not the nature of our relationship, but But you are, you have quite an impressive resume, and all the things that you've done. And we're really excited to get into this conversation, especially with your expertise. And you teach this stuff all the time to your students at Pitt. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm ready.
Well,
I'm ready. Well, I'm ready.
Excited to have you.
Good.
Excited to have you.
Bring it. Raw, uncut, unapologetic.
Okay.
So before we do that, let's lead it off with our grounding practice. Yes, thank you.
I forgot again,
Dr.
John.
Chilson, Clark, for being here. Well, that's what we're here for, is to keep one another accountable and to keep one another from skipping the important stuff, which is the grounding practice is one of the important things, parts of the show, both the front and the end. Of course, the guest is the meat and potatoes, and we very much appreciate what you're here to talk about, Clark. But yes, we like to kick it off with that grounding practice. So that said, another hat hair day here for John, and I'm gonna kick that grounding practice off. So go ahead and get into that comfortable position, and whatever is safe for you. If you're watching, if you're listening, whatever is safe for you. Obviously, don't want to close your eyes if you're driving, but just listen to what is being said, and let's bring your focus to your body in this time and in this space, right here and right now. Starting by focusing on the physical sensations of the breath. Noting where the air is entering your body and where it is leaving. How the air feels as it enters. Versus how it feels when it leaves. And imagine with each breath in that you are breathing in life, breathing in energy, breathing in love. And with each breath out, you're breathing out that same love, that same energy, that same life. Breathing it in and breathing it out. Again, just note your shape, your form in this time and space. Noting your feet on the ground, your legs in the seat that you're in, your body again in this time and in this space. And let's conclude together with one deep cleansing breath. Begin by breathing out all your air, emptying your lungs. Hold at the bottom. Deep breath in. All the way in. Hold at the top. And relax, letting it go nice and slow. 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 Now start to bring some movement back into your body. And if your eyes were closed, go ahead and start to blink them open. If they weren't, just go ahead and refocus your gaze. And here we are. And I've got to say, Will and I have started doing meditations as part of the show as actual standalone episodes. And our latest one will beat me up a little bit on it because it was on peace and joy and love in chaos. And Will texted me right after I uploaded. He's like, who's the hippie now?
Exactly.
So well played, sir. Well played.
And John's, if I can offer you a reply, John's like, he goes, I think, what'd you say? I think I am a hippie.
I think
I
I've
should
always
have been a
been one.
hippie. I think I've always been one. Welcome to the other side, John. Thank you so much. Don't you feel more free?
Oh
and more
yeah,
relaxed,
love it.
you know?
Excellent.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Clark, with us today. I thought it'd be fun in the beginning to talk about how we met.
Yeah.
We ended up 2016.
Yeah.
Clark and I were roommates that never spoke to one another for 9 days. We did a Vipassana retreat in which we actually have an episode on Vipassana. One of our, I think, season 1 episodes on Vipassana meditation, but it's a 10-day silent meditation in which there's no communication with the outside world, no reading, no writing, no even acknowledging each other within the meditation space. So you're doing 10 hours of meditation a day and 1 hour every single meditation for those 10 meditations. And I remember Clark, like we actually had, I forget the other guy that we had a room of 3 and it would just be like, I think I might've said, I got there right at like, I think the program started like at 5:30. I got there like at 5:30 or I got there at 5 so I could just jump right in and kind of move through the entire 10 days. So I think I just maybe got a hello. And then it was just like in the morning, the alarm would go off at 4:30 or the bell would ding to get up. And it would just like, we would just somehow communicate with like, I think it would be our roommate would take the first shower and then Clark would, and then I would, and we'd all go and meditate. And then we were allowed on the 9th morning, after being in complete silence, doing all this meditation, you're allowed to speak again and communicate with other people that are in the retreat. And that's when Clark and I started to get to know one another. And we've been doing just monthly calls just to kind of connect around, mindfulness in our lives and I guess kind of keeping the energy and the spirit of Vipassana kind of alive within us. And it's been something, Clark, that I've really, really enjoyed connecting with you, especially also tapping into your wisdom and your knowledge and all the things that we kind of talked about in your bio, that a lot of that stuff's come through talking over to like literally the last 5 years, like every month or so. So thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I want to share a story with John, because John, you probably don't know this, but I did not like Will. The first 9 days I was with, I did not like him. So you were able to like him right away. I was not. And I will tell you why. Because Will slept about, 5 feet away from me on a bed, 5 feet away from me for 9 days. And I am doing this Vipassana retreat, not because I'm, someone who has any expectations of becoming more Buddha-like. I am doing it because I practice another form of meditation called Nikon. And every time I gave a presentation on Nikon, or frequently when I gave a presentation on Nikon, it seemed, people would say, well, have you ever done a 10-day Vipassana? And I said, no, I hadn't. They're like, well, you got to do one because it's going to change your life. So I thought, all right, I'll do one just so I can say I did one, right? So I went there just to say I could do one. I'm just going to suck it up for 10 days. And so I can have the experience, right? And so then I get this roommate who comes in at the last minute, throws his stuff down, says, I'm Will. I don't talk to him for the rest of the time, and this is why I didn't like him. I am not like Will. I am not flexible, all right? But I am sitting on the floor. I'm sitting on the floor for about 12 hours a day, and this is causing me a lot of pain, right? And I'm trying to focus on my breath, and I'm, trying to deal with the pain, and I am sore at night. So I am lying in bed at night, trying to get some sleep. And I hear this voice from 5 feet away going, wow, yeah, cool. I'm going to land. He's having dreams about sky. He's having dreams about what sounded like he was hand gliding. And so Will is talking in his sleep, having all these fantastic dreams, while I am sitting there in pain. This is not fair. Why couldn't I get a roommate who could just sleep through the night? Anyway, so when I finally got to talk with Mel, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're a
That's
decent human being.
hilarious. I love it.
Well, I remember you said to me, Clark, you're like, this is like, you're like, do you know you talk in your sleep, right? And I was like, oh no, was I talking in my sleep on a silent retreat? It was like, oh no,
At
I'm glad
that
I'm
time,
glad we're,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was like
Will, you
7 out of the 10 nights too, Will.
you
What?
hadn't
Oh my
learned
God.
Yeah, and
you hadn't learned to
sometimes it was
tape your
more than
mouth
once
shut.
a night.
Sometimes there's more than one little shot in my dream. Oh
Yeah,
my
but they
God.
were always good. Like you were never angry in your dreams. You were never. You were just having a great time.
Wow.
That was before Will learned to tape his mouth shut at night,
Okay.
which we learned from James Nestor.
Okay.
But now I know for a fact, because he was my roommate for 4 or 5 nights down in
Yeah.
Costa Rica, that he doesn't talk in his sleep because he tapes his mouth shut, as do I,
Okay.
Yeah.
which helps a lot.
Okay.
Maybe
I guess
maybe if you ever go on a Vipassana retreat and your friend mate is talking in their sleep, just hold up some tape and kind of act as though to show them that it should be over their mouths.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll really endear me to my roommate. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, thanks for that, Clark. Why don't we start with a little background here? So why'd you get into this area of study? I mean, it's been a part of your life for, my God, like how many years?
So I originally started out in cultural anthropology. I moved to Japan when I was 19 years old. I went as an exchange student and I wound up just staying. And, I was always interested in the question of how to live, like how can we live better? And cultural anthropology was interesting because, you learn about different ways that people live and how culture affects how we live. And, as part of an undergraduate program in anthropology in Japan, I started studying religion, anthropological studies of religion, and that really took my interest. And also, Buddhism in Japan is quite different than the way most Americans understand Buddhism. So many Japanese who would say, if asked, what's your religion? They would typically say, I don't have a religion, but I'm Buddhist. And what they mean by that is not like they meditate or that, Buddhism is non-religious. What they mean by that is for them, Buddhism is really about the ancestors and ancestor veneration and doing memorial rites and ritual practices. And so that really interested me, that the religious culture in Japan was so different. And so when I went, I was deciding whether to go to graduate school for religious studies or anthropology, and I decided on religious studies. And I started out working on a Japanese Buddhist saint, and then eventually I got into doing ethnographic field work on different groups. But most recently, I've been working on, for the past 9 years, I've been working on a meditative practice that started in Pure Land Buddhism in Japan, that has been used as a psychotherapeutic intervention since the 1960s for addiction, for alcohol addiction, for gambling addiction, for depression, for people having a hard time going to work, anxiety, things like that.
And this is Nikon you're talking about, yeah?
That's Nikon, yeah.
And that's spelled N-A-I-K-N, is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
N-A-I-K-A-N, and it's pronounced like the camera, Nikon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. John, let's go over to you. What do we?
Yeah. I mean, you kicked it off, Will, with basically what brought this topic up for me is as a meditation teacher, I often get asked something to the effect of, one, how does this differ from prayer? Or, hey, I am Christian and meditation is against my religion, or isn't meditation Buddhist, or are you teaching a Buddhist practice? So, Clark, what is your understanding and your belief of how meditation and religion kind of overlap. I mean, I don't see them as mutually exclusive. What's your understanding and belief of that?
So I think it helps to define what meditation is. So mindfulness is one type of meditation. Mindfulness is not equal to meditation. There's lots of types of meditation. Mindfulness meditation is one. So more broadly, and there's even within Buddhism, there's hundreds of different types of meditation. You can classify them into a certain several different types, but there's lots of different types of meditation in Buddhism. There is meditation in Christianity. And so the way that to define it, which I think is helpful, is meditation is about attention regulation. It's disciplined attention regulation. So you focus on something, and so that's the attention regulation. And it's disciplined because you do it over a certain length of time. You don't do it just for a few seconds. You would do it for a longer length of time. So when we start to think about meditation as attention regulation practices, it can bring in a lot of different things, which can be done in a religious context, or it can be done in a therapeutic or medical context.
How would you define religion? Or what, yeah.
So really, there's a famous scholar of religion called Jonathan Z. Smith, and he wrote an article in which he mentioned that there's more than 50 different ways that people have defined religion in this particular book. And he said what that means is not that you can't define religion. It means that there's lots and lots and lots of different ways you can define religion. So I don't have a particular definition of religion. I think it's really hard to try to pin down religion to one or two things. I will say this, however, that the way many Americans understand religion is they understand it as belief-based, whereas in many religious traditions, it's really practice-based. And that the practice leads to the belief. The belief does not lead to the practice. So,
that's a great distinction.
Judaism, for example. I mean, Jews typically don't talk about being kosher based on their belief. Most Jewish people do not speak about their religion the way Protestant Christians do. So Protestant Christians speak about their religion very much in belief terms, but a lot of religions don't. So it would be false to say religion is about what people believe. Or at least it would be very, very restricting definition. You'd have to really discount a lot of what's going on.
Well, I have, John and I like to define things on the show, or I do, just to kind of as like a focusing tool as well. But I went on to, the Webster's, and it says, this is interesting because there's a lot, like what you just said, Clark, kind of shows up on and defining this on an internet as well, or defining this in, Webster's and other Oxford dictionaries. It says essential meaning of religion is first caption they have, essential meaning of religion, and I have three. Number one is the belief in a god or in a group of gods. Number two, an organized systems of beliefs, ceremonies, and rules used to worship a god or a group of gods. There are many religions, this keeps going here, such as Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Shinto, in religion that is unique to Japan. And three is informal. This is an informal definition, interest, a belief, or activity that is very important to a person or a group. So I just want to put that in our conversation here today. And it kind of goes along to exactly what you're talking about here. And I just think it's very, when you mention those questions, John, or when I hear those questions, it's like, I have really trouble, honestly, understanding the conflict. It's right. Like, if something like meditation is going to help me and the way that you beautifully describe, what meditation does for people, and it's just a focusing tool. It's like, how isn't that going to benefit me with anything that I do, regardless of my religion? And that's always and then the feelings, there's so many, I think it's like, I can't meditate, or there's like where like some people seemingly put like a religious or like a roadblock up, and because it's like it's not meditation or these mindfulness practices isn't brought in or thought of as some sort of particular religion, then that's not for me, or I'm like moving into some sort of transgression, or I'm gonna get I have to go go to confession now or something like that because I meditated. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that come up for me during this discussion. I think I just mentioned every single one, but if we can help unpack, it'd be great.
Yeah, I'd like to jump on that before Clark, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So we've essentially defined meditation. We've defined not Christianity, but we've defined religion. And I had a discussion with one of my good friends who is he's got a fairly robust Christian background to where he actually teaches it, and he and I his religion neutral definition of meditation is what he gave me, and he says to think deeply or focus one's mind for a period of time, just like you said, Clark, in silence or with the aid of chanting for religious or spiritual purposes or as a method of relaxation. 2 is to think deeply or carefully about something, or 3 is to plan mentally and or consider. And with what you've said, Clark, about meditation, about what I've just mentioned there about meditation, and then what Will just mentioned about the definition of religion, I mean, I would imagine that meditation can actually help to improve one's faith. At least that's what I believe. I'd like to know both of your guys' thoughts on how meditation and mindfulness, again, understanding that those are two separate things, but they can be supplementary or complementary, how these two things can actually improve your faith journey.
Yeah, so I think what makes a meditation practice religious and what makes it secular is the context and the purpose in which it's done and the purpose for which it is done. And so you can use meditation, of which mindfulness is one type. So I think of, if we're going to put it in two different categories, like meditation is like sport, right? There's lots of different sports. Mindfulness would be like, football. Okay, it's one type of sport. So if we think about, the context and purpose for which people meditate in different ways, we can see that they meditate in religious context for religious purposes, and they also can meditate in secular contexts, in a hospital, at home, for a secular purpose, reducing stress. They can meditate in their office for trying not to react to a colleague's annoying email. So I would say, to distinguish between meditation that's religious and meditation that's secular, we would benefit by looking at the context and purposes for which it's used. So with that background, what are the contexts and purposes in religion in which it can be beneficial? And because meditation is most closely associated with Buddhism, I'm actually going to give an example from Christianity. So in Christianity, for example, you have something called centering prayer, which is a type of meditation in which you focus on a particular word. And so you can choose the word. It can be love, it could be Jesus, it could be God, but you focus on a particular word and you sit in silence and you keep bringing the word to mind over and over again. You might say it quietly out loud. And what you're doing there is you're trying to connect to God. You're trying to open yourself up to God. and remove all the things that separate the meditator from the God that they worship. And so in that way, you can start thinking about meditation as opening oneself up to grace, to the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And so my point is that meditation is not Buddhist, or not exclusively Buddhist. Meditation can be done in a variety of different religious contexts for a variety of different religious goals.
I want to touch, since we mentioned Buddhism quite a bit there, and again, a lot of people ask that when we talk about meditation and mindfulness, they say, well, isn't this a Buddhist practice? Buddhism, is it a religion? And if not, what is it? What do you understand it to be? And what is the confusion there?
Is that for me, John?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah. Buddhism, yes, it's a religion.
I'm not the expert there, Clark. Okay. Even though I got to say, like, what you just mentioned about, it's like a mantra, and I sit in my meditation now, and my meditation for the last few weeks has been almost like a prayer, in the sense of, like, I am just going over and over and over again. I am loving peace. I am loving peace. And that's all I've been doing for the last several weeks, and just kind of really trying to not just experience those words in my meditation, but also, live them a little bit, more every single day. But sorry, sorry. I don't know if you need to ask your question again, John. My apologies.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because depending on who you talk to, some people say that Buddhism is a religion. Others say it's a philosophy, not a religion. Some people say, hey, I can be Christian and I can practice Buddhism at the same time. What are your thoughts? What do you know to be true there, Clark?
So the reason why I say it's a religion is because in most contexts, it is practiced like other religions. In other words, there are rituals, there are doctrinal ideas that cannot be verified. Nirvana is not a scientific proven thing. Enlightenment is not something you can scientifically prove. The realm of rebirth is not something that is scientific. So if we're going to set up science as the secular world, and things that cannot be validated by natural science as falling in a religious category, Buddhism definitely is like lots of other religions. There's deities in Buddhism. There's exorcisms in Buddhism. There's a clergy in Buddhism. There's monastic communities in Buddhism. It has many, many characteristics that you would find in other religions. Now, the reason why so many North Americans like to think of Buddhism as non-religious is because they probably don't like religion, or they probably are, if they're not hostile, they're at best indifferent. And they encounter a form of Buddhism that they are attracted to because, and this is important, because Buddhism has been presented to Westerners in a way that they will take an interest in it. This is called Buddhist modernism. And so Buddhist modernism is basically a form, it's a Buddhist movement, or it's a movement in which Buddhism is presented to complement many Western values. Individualism, social justice, gender equality, the coherence between science and religion, rationality, and so on and so forth. So when they hear about Buddhism from these Buddhist modernists, who, by the way, are not representative of most Buddhists in most of the world through most of time.
Great. Thank you for that. That's awesome distinction.
They have become dominant in the popular media in North America. And so that's how most Americans think about what Buddhism is. But that is only, Buddhism is a dynamic religious tradition. And if you want to get people who are not involved in a religious community to take an interest in Buddhism, you're probably going to be more successful if you present it as non-religious. Because in English, religion is a restrictive category. And philosophy is a more open category. And so people are going to be more willing to engage with it if you say it's not religious, and you even go a step further and try to say, oh, there's scientific studies that, validate what Buddhists do. That really makes it wide open. And so that's why some people probably can say, like, I'm Christian, but I do Buddhist practices, because the way they've been presented Buddhism is as if it were a non-religious entity.
Wow. There you go. You are, in fact, proving yourself to be the expert. Love it.
Well,
Thank you, Clark.
yeah, thank you, Clark. Like that like little piece right there, what you talk about, like religion versus philosophy, and I mean, I just have a hard time in some ways. Like, I mean, for me as an individual, like putting myself in one box, and only being in that box. And unwilling to, because of, or maybe there is like some sort of cultural or social pressure here in some ways to like maintain like myself in that box. So therefore, if I identify myself as like a rigorous religious person, whatever that might be, therefore, like as soon as I even think about Buddhism or even talk about Buddhism, like it's like there's maybe feelings of guilt or shame or that kind of come up with that. I don't know exactly where I'm going with what I'm saying, but like, for me, it's like, I just don't understand like that, maybe it's a personal belief or just a cultural thing, like why we just want to be known for one thing or only do one thing. I don't know if you have any comments on that, but I don't know. This is I hope I'm making sense.
So right now in America, I often hear people say they're spiritual but not religious. And I just want to turn that on its head for a minute. What's the advantages of being religious without being spiritual? So what religion can do, what a religious community does, and what a religious tradition does, is it can discipline us so that we don't become victims to the tyranny of our impulses. With spirituality, what can happen is it can become completely self-indulgent and completely narcissistic. In other words, whatever I think all of a sudden becomes valorized by connecting it with the spiritual divine world, as I understand it. And that can lead to some pretty narcissistic ways of thinking, which are not conducive to connecting us with our fellow human beings. And so, I'm sure that you have probably had this experience where you've met somebody who regards themselves as very spiritual, but also for some reason they seem to be slightly off-putting. And maybe why that is because this is a person who's very self-involved.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to kind of take that another step, or maybe take a little branch off of that. Will and I, we recently went down to Costa Rica and we participated in a psychedelic ceremony, and the ceremony was spiritual. There was some words said to the spirits of the different directions, spirit of the north, spirit of the south, east, west. And we really opened up sacred space to the ceremony before actually taking the plant medicine. And you mentioned, Clark, was religion, and I'm probably going to butcher exactly what you said, but you mentioned religion was more of a practice than a belief. Can someone who has a particular religious belief go and participate in a spiritual ceremony similar to what we did, or something in a similar context, without violating their own religious beliefs?
Right. So I think that kind of question is really for the individual and the community to decide. So obviously individuals can make that choice. But I think communities also need to make the choice about what within their religious community are the boundaries of helpful behavior for digging deeper within that tradition. So when Will and I went to this Vipassana training, we got very clear instructions beforehand. Don't come here and try to do other types of meditation. You're going to come here and you're going to do Vipassana. You might have you might be able to do other forms of meditation, but while you're here, do Vipassana. And so there's advantages to letting those decisions be made by religious communities so that they can go deeper into their tradition. Trying to do everything from the perspective of some religious communities, including the Vipassana community, is not helpful for going deeper. You have to pick a place and dig. Otherwise, you just live in the shallows.
There you go. Yeah, I think you also you mentioned when we're talking about religion and boundaries, you use the word and how you need to not just be a lone operator in the sense of like, you know what, I'm going to go do a 10-day Vipassana, or I'm going to go down to Costa Rica and do a psilocybin ceremony. It seems like also the community aspect of religion, which is it's a big part of religion itself, actually helps to amplify the discipline. That's part of you. I mean, like I was raised Catholic, baptized, confirmed. I was a non-molested altar boy. And then I just kind of like, I say non-molested, I'm sorry if that but I think I need to distinguish that because, like the Catholic Church get a bad rap on that front. But then like, I just wasn't really inspired. And then I've just kind of been, maybe it is a little bit narcissistic in the sense of like, I have my own aspects of spirituality, but I'm very disciplined in how I continually practice my spirituality with like meditation and other practices like journaling that help me to continually stay connected, I feel, to a higher purpose and a higher calling. So let's talk, maybe Clark, we can kind of talk about that community aspect to religion as well.
Right. So one of the concerns I have about the mindfulness movement in the United States is that it's generally pretty ignorant of the centuries of wisdom, that Buddhists have had with meditation, and some of the things that happen in meditation, which are virtually never talked about when you're reading about mindfulness in English. And so the basic, if you Google around on mindfulness, typically what you're going to find is articles about how wonderful it is, and it's going to make your life better, and you're going to reduce your stress, and it's just there's nothing bad about it. It's just all wonderful. The problem is, however, if you look at meditation within Buddhism, there's a number of things that happen which require a community and particularly a teacher. So, for example, if people meditate quite a bit, so when I say an hour, I would say an hour or more a day. If they meditate an hour or more a day for 10 to 12 months, they will probably start to feel bad. Negative affect sets in. This is very common. Buddhist texts talk about it. This is anybody who's familiar with the Buddhist literature on intense meditation over long periods of time will find this. It's very common to happen. But people don't hear that. So when this happens to them, they become rather despondent, and they can put themselves in a dangerous position. So that's one problem. The second problem is sometimes in meditation, the mind tells us stuff that is just not healthy. And if we start to take our thoughts too seriously in meditation, that can be dangerous too. A third danger, and believe me, I have a whole list of dangers. I'll stop with the
Go
first one.
for it.
A third danger is something called spiritual bypassing. And spiritual bypassing is basically you're going to use a spiritual practice, let's say meditation or mindfulness meditation in this case, and you're going to use it to enhance your own ego and to ignore all the kind of psychodynamic problems that need to be dealt with. So for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're having a difficulty in a personal relationship, you're angry. Let's say you're angry at your spouse, okay? So you're angry at your spouse and you're gonna sit down and meditate. And while you're sitting down and meditating, you're doing your mindfulness meditation, you're focusing on your breath. All of a sudden the thought comes into your mind about this awful thing that your spouse did. And then your mind starts saying, well, if your spouse would just meditate like I do, then they would be better, and they should really, I have so much compassion for them, and I just want them to be better. And if they would just meditate and follow my example, then they would be better. And what you're doing here is now you're setting yourself up as better than your spouse and being very condescending to them, which keeps you, and this is important, which keeps you from actually listening to what they might be trying to tell you. So my point is this, is that I'm concerned that not enough information is being put out there about some of the negative side effects that can occur when people go off and start meditating by themselves.
What would your go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think that's where Clark was going is kind of bouncing off of your question before, Will, about the importance of a community and having that support there. So if you do, or when you do experience those negative side effects, then you can talk with someone about them and understand what's happening there. Is that right, Clark?
That's absolutely. But here's the problem, John. The problem is communities are difficult. And they're difficult because they tell us things we don't want to hear. And we have to deal with other human beings which don't agree with everything we think is true.
Yeah,
and
narcissism.
So it's very easy and even attractive to try to do this by ourselves because no one's going to bother us. But the point is, to get better at something, including meditation, it's important to have people who can bother us, so that we can not become overwhelmed with our own viewpoint, which is limited.
My mind just blew up.
Yeah, I know. Would you suggest Clark, that if that to be a part of like a meditation community or have like a meditation teacher that you kind of check in with, or is just using one of our meditations on our platform or going to another place to meditate might not be the best thing that you should be doing for yourself right now? Like do you have any recommendations around there?
So I think the advantage of what you're doing, and this is why I'm very glad you're doing it, is because it gives people a resource in which to think about what is going on in their meditation. And it's also, you and John, it's just two of you on the show, but there's a little community right there. A community of people can be built up around a show, which can then lead them to more personal communities. I mean, right now with COVID, it's difficult, but in just about every major city, there's going to be a community that cares about meditation. It could be a Vipassana community. It could be a Buddhist community. It could also be a Catholic contemplative community. There's certainly a number of non-Buddhist meditative groups out there as well. It could be simply a mindfulness-based stress reduction course. But my point is that, just trying to do this by ourselves is not only difficult, it's also not the most effective way to gain what can be gained from meditation.
But coming back is that we can gain a lot through the meditation. I mean, hence all of us practicing.
Yeah.
I mean, what you mentioned before, stress reduction, dealing with and processing anxiety, dealing with and processing past events, past traumas. Those are potential benefits that we can get, but we also have to be aware of what you call side effects. So, I also don't want to present mindfulness and or meditation of any form in particular as necessarily 100% dangerous. It's just we need to understand what comes with the pros is there are potential cons as well.
Absolutely. I mean, somebody once said, if it's powerful enough to heal, it's powerful enough to hurt.
Yeah.
And so, meditation is powerful enough to do both. And it's important to realize that so people don't get hurt by it.
Right. Right.
Is part of finding that balance, Clark, and not getting too lost in your own narcissism or imagination or spirituality, if you will, just by meditating in your own little bubble, and not what I'm saying with the balance also, or finding that balance, because that's kind of where I guess we're trying to find that level playing field here in some ways when talking about meditation or just mindfulness meditation. Is it not just get caught up in the imagination, like I said, but also checking in with reality, checking in with somebody else, or, do you see where I'm getting here?
Checking in with someone else is very important. Checking in with other people that care about us, people who know us, people who share the practice, very important. And I don't think that gets nearly as much attention as it should.
All right. Well, this is awareness that you're bringing to myself and I imagine a lot of our audience right now, just by kind of talking about, this community aspect around whether it's spirituality or religion in some ways, and how that I'd imagine, by us connecting with other people, it's I'm not just reflecting back, what I want to hear, but you might not like what, like you said earlier, what someone might have to say. It's like, you're getting a little too full of yourself. It's like, you better check in with, X, Y, and Z, or it seems like you're spiritual bypassing because you're acting like a shithead because you seem like you're better than me or something. So, I feel like I'm rambling a lot today, guys.
So I also want to say that, listen, there's also a dosage issue. So typically if people are meditating 10 or 15 minutes, they're in safer territory. They're not completely safe territory, but they're in safer territory because it's just a small dosage,
Microdose.
Microdose meditation.
Microdose, exactly. Some people, however, they think if a little is good, a lot's going to be a lot better. Then, I had a student once who was really into headspace and he was getting, and he did it, he was meditating for about an hour a day for almost a year, and he put himself into a really dangerous position. And I said, stop it. This is not the way meditation was meant to be practiced, at least from a Buddhist traditional perspective, and unfortunately he completely stopped. And I don't think ever found a teacher, which was kind of unfortunate. I think he probably wound up having to go to a psychotherapist because he had he had entered into a pretty dark place, and it surprised him. I also want to mention, if I may, one other reason why people in Buddhist studies are quite concerned about what's going on in the mindfulness movement, if I may. Do you have time for
Please,
one more?
please.
Yeah.
So right now, corporations, big organizations like hospitals and Google and other corporations are getting people to do mindfulness-based practices as a way of helping them deal with stress. Schools are getting people to do their students to do mindfulness practices. And the reason why quite a few of us in Buddhist studies are a little bit concerned about that is because it winds up shifting the responsibility for what institutions do to people onto the individual and away from the institutional culture. So in other words, if you're working at Google, and you are stressed out and Google says, well, take this mindfulness course, right? And then you take the mindfulness course and you're still stressed out, well, it's your fault. It's not Google's fault for being an over-demanding, less than humane organization. It's that, it's now your personal responsibility to deal with stress. It's not the institution's responsibility to make work environments less stressful. And so, again, the way mindfulness can be used is not always with necessarily the best outcomes. Because in that particular case, mindfulness is being a way of keeping major institutions from reflecting on their own business practices.
Well, I absolutely a great point. I do agree to a point, but I will say that in this day and age, a lot of and I see Lindsay commented in the private chat there, victim blaming. That is what a lot of corporations do, is victim blaming, is saying, hey, look, you are stressed out, you need to figure this out. We're going to give you this tool to stress. But I will say that a lot of the stress that I think people are under these days is self-induced. It's not 100% based on the corporation or industry that they work for or in. I mean, a lot of it, honestly, is caused by these things, our cell phones, and being hyper connected virtually all the time, and having to respond to social media and texts and any other notification that pops up on our phone. I think we are living in a hyper aroused society, and that's where the fixing needs to happen, is not just at the corporate level or the industry level, but in society, and being able to start with a meditation practice may help to change society. So I think that's a very valid point, Clark, and I'm not disagreeing. I just wanted to see maybe if we could expand that outside the corporate setting to society writ large. Maybe we could change the world.
Yeah, I agree, John. There's lots of different factors. Actually, when I sent you an email yesterday, John, and I got a response that said, I'm trying to look at email yesterday, I felt like clapping. Because I agree, we have so much noise from our connectivity that's a problem. Actually, some months ago, maybe a year ago now, I stopped going on the internet before 12 noon.
Nice.
And I started getting way more done. I felt way more relaxed. Just staying off any electronic device until noon makes a huge difference.
Right. And Will posted yesterday or the day before about how we need to cancel the news. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but also a little proud to admit that I don't watch the news anymore. I don't watch the news because of what watching the news did to me with my stress levels and my anxiety levels. And now cutting it out, I find that if it's important enough, and I mean, I'm not recommending that everyone cut out the news, but if it's causing a level of stress and anxiety in your life that is undue, cut it out. And if there's something that's in the news that is important enough for us to know, you're gonna hear about it. Your buddy's gonna call you or something else. But personally, I've cut it out, and it's been a game changer for me mentally. So, well, I know we're up against the hour here, Clark, and I want to be respectful of your time. I don't know, Will, how do you want to proceed?
I just want to make one last comment. So maybe if you're listening to this and you're not meditating or haven't meditated, or maybe will someday, maybe a great place to start is just by learning to be with yourself, getting off your devices, turning off the news, and just, that's what really these practices meditation is. And it's just like spending some alone time, or just like without all this hyperconnectivity and this incredible or very intense and stressful headspace that it puts us in. And maybe that's enough, just to, like Clark was saying, just reduce, and that can come from many different forms, not just the information that's in your life, but that's continually streaming in your life, but other ways. And maybe just reduce and learn to be a better person with yourself. And I'd imagine if you're better with yourself, then you're going to be a better citizen on this planet as well. But I think we could, if you have any last comments or anything, Clark, before we do our grounding practice, I really, really, really appreciate you coming on today and kind of blowing our minds in a lot of ways. It's
Absolutely.
This is a very beautiful discussion that you broke down in so many different beautiful ways and very clear ways that anybody that's listening, could proceed with the caution that we brought into this conversation, but could also proceed with, I think, some confidence that I don't think there's a lot of conflict, and also maybe a more effective way to proceed as you go on your mindfulness or religious journey as well. So any last comments, Clark?
So I would just say that one of the benefits that I've had from doing mindfulness meditation is that the ability to learn how to be quiet has allowed me to be more open to my wife, to my children, to my friends, to my colleagues, and to my students. And so being able to learn how to be quiet, learn how to get rid of the noise in my head so I can really listen and be with other people has been a tremendous benefit that I've gotten from the practice.
Hear, hear.
And I want to thank you
Amen.
guys I want to thank you, Will, for your friendship. It's great meeting you, John.
You as well.
Yeah.
So really, really fast, before Will leads the closing meditation, closing practice, Clark, if our listeners wanted to find out more, or if they had questions for you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Email chilson@pitt.edu. Also, because my name is rather unusual, if you just Google my name, you can probably figure out how to get a hold of me.
There you go.
Chilson. I'm reading it like Chilson. I'm like, I say. Thank you, Clark. All right, John. I guess we'll close. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Right. So let's just stop what you're doing and for a moment, and we're just going to take a couple breaths to allow ourselves to ground down and maybe filter and receive some more of this wisdom that Clark so graciously has brought to us today. So let's just find your feet on the floor if you're sitting down, or maybe just kind of stop. And whatever you're doing, if you're driving, keep your eyes open. If you're sitting down or lying down, maybe close your eyes, and let's just start with a nice exhale out the back of the throat and through the mouth. Good. Take a big inhale, really big inhale. And exhale with that side of your mouth. And as you let go on that side, maybe some feelings or whatever, just really letting go of whatever's on the inside that's keeping you from being more present. Let's do more of those. Inhale really big. Inhale. Out. One more big inhale. Keep going. Inhale. Out. Let's just shape the breath for these last few. We're going to inhale for 4 seconds through the nose, exhale through the nose for 4 seconds, and just really trying to work with a very peaceful and smooth quality of breath. So exhale out through the nose. Inhaling for 4, 3, big breath, 2, 1. Exhale smoothly through the nose, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, inhale, 4. Smoothly exhaling, 4. A few more in for 4. Out for 4. In. Out. Last one. In. And out. Good. Take a moment and just thank yourself for tuning in. Maybe make a little movement in your head, neck, shoulders if you like. Open those eyes when you're ready. And Clark, it is a true pleasure and an honor to have you on our show and to really connect with my friend in a deeper and more meaningful way, and also introducing you to our community. So thank you so much for being here today, Clark. Really, really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. And for the audience, until next time, we appreciate your listening. And please share this episode and share this show with your friends, your family, whoever else you think may need it. Until next time, peace.
Peace.
Thanks for joining Will and John on Men Talking Mindfulness. If you enjoyed the show, please like and share it with your friends and family. And please, we would appreciate a review too. Until next time, this has been Men Talking Mindfulness. Thanks for showing up.